Q&A. I hope you'll join me in welcoming RAMI MALEK. You've been getting a lot of that lately, huh?
Yeah. No,
Doesn't get old though, right?
No, that's, that's for Freddie, and I guess for myself as well. But a whole heap of people who worked on this film and this music, I think it does that to some of those people. I know it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are gonna get into this movie and the performance, but I thought people who are, maybe some people here today have not yet discovered Mr. Robot or some of your other past work, and I just want to get into a little bit about how we got here. So it's going to be a little bit of a different kind of a Q&A than probably most. Let's just start. Where are you from? Where were you born and raised?
Okay. I grew up here. I grew up in Sherman Oaks on the border. Yeah, about that. Which is funny because our producer, when he was asked by the band, Queen, Brian May and Roger T, he said, "Well, I found our Freddie, and he's a Brit too." I said, "Where is he from?" And he said, "Sherman Oaks."
Well, you are actually of Egyptian descent, right? Your folks are both from Egypt. How do you think that shaped you as a kid growing up?
Oh, wow!
We're gonna go deep. Let's do it. We're here, right?
Yeah. Well, it was difficult because it was great in one sense, is that I had this heritage and culture, that was just in my blood. Obviously, from the very beginning, Arabic was actually my first language. So, once I think my parents got a little freaked out once we started to say yes and no and begin learning English as a family, and that slowly took over as we got older, of course. But it was something we spoke at home for the most part, or at least listened to our parents speak in Arabic. And we go to a Coptic church on Sundays with incense burning for 4 hours, and I just thought, wow, the other kids at school are not doing this. And the other kids at school are not doing a lot of things that my family was doing. But I love the traditions, I love the heritage, and it was a very unique way of growing up. And thank God, it was in a very diverse place like Los Angeles, where I could at least see some other people that were different in that sense, that I didn't feel like the absolute odd man out.
And acting, as just in terms of discovering it in your life, that was it. You weren't like a kid who was a theater kid up until about high school, right?
Yeah.
What got you hooked?
Well, talking about the heritage and everything, parents, so many parents just want their kids to be obviously lawyers and doctors and whatnot. So acting was never even an option or a thought. Anything like that would be just extremely radical and not the reason why they would say they came to America. So, my dad always, we would watch CNN and old movies quite a bit, and one thing he's always impressed upon me was you have this ability to do something special. He just thought maybe in politics or something to that effect. So I did take this debate class in high school. I think I told you this.
I love it. That's great.
And at one point, my teacher said, "Well, you're not very good at the debate part." There is something that is that you can do a humorous interpretation or a dramatic interpretation. And I did. He handed me this play called Zooman and the Sign, and I went home and I read it. It was a one-man show, and all of a sudden, after reading the first page, I could feel myself almost, just becoming this other human being. And I remember saying, my name is Zooman, Z-O-O-M-A-N. I'm from the bottom, and I was 13 years old, and a some character that I just didn't know I could pick up so quick. I went back to him a few days later, and he's like, "What did you think?" I go, "Well, yeah, I have this memorized, and I can show it to you." And he was shocked, and he saw it, and then he entered me in this competition, and about a couple weeks later, I was performing in front of my mom and dad, and for the first time, I saw a visceral reaction from them seeing me do something that was so foreign to them. And it was just emotional. It was an emotion I got from my father in particular that I'd never felt before. And I thought, oh, well, that's different. Maybe there's something to be done with this stuff.
And so you go off, you get your BFA, you move to New York like many other actors, and like many other actors, it was not easy right out of the gate. But I love the story, and I think others will as well, of how you basically took things into your own hands with leading to Gilmore Girls.
I went to New York, and it was at one point sleeping with two other actors in a one-bedroom apartment, and yeah, that didn't last for very long. But I mean, that's what you did. You just had a futon in somebody's kitchen, and that's how it was actually. And then finally, I said, I'm from Los Angeles. I should just go back there and see if it could be a little bit easier here. And casting director Malek Finn, she was the one actually who would buy. She said, "Come to Los Angeles. Something will work out for you there." And I met her. She said, "Get all your headshots and resumes and take them to all the film schools. Leave them with anyone that you think can possibly help you in this business." And so I did. I went to every film school and would just periodically dump headshots and resumes scattered all over the place. And I would submit myself to anything I saw on Backstage or that's an Actors Magazine for the most part.
They're actually airing our conversation. This is
How
being
about
filmed.
And anything online. And I remember, so many times nobody would call back, and that's just the way it was. I was working at a fast food place, and if anybody looked any way producerial, I would slip my headshot into to go back. Seriously, I mean, and it worked. I mean, I think I got an audition that way once. I'm not kidding. But I did get a call one day, and it was the casting director from the Gilmore Girls, Mara Casey, and she said, "Can I speak to Rami Malek's agent?" And I said, "Speaking." And she said, "Well, great. We'd love to have Rami come in for a small co-starring part in the show. Is he a SAG actor?" And I said, "Currently, no." And she said, "All right, and you've been representing him for how long?" And I said, "Well, quite some time." She said, "Is this Rami Malek?" I said, "Actually, yes." She started to laugh a little bit, and she's like, "Oh, good luck with everything. Call me when you get an agent." And I said, "I mean, why? I think we can cut out the middleman right now." And she started laughing again. She's like, "Well, no, we got to go through the procedures and whatnot." I'm like, "Really? I mean, we're having such a good time. This is 3 lines. I'm in Sherman Oaks right now." I went back to live with my mom's for a bit. And I'm like, "Warner Brothers is so close. I'll be there in 10 minutes. She took a second, and she said, "Are you SAG?" And I said, "No." And I said, "Well, that's something we can work on as well, agent and SAG." And she said, "All right, come on in." I couldn't believe it. I mean, after a couple of years of just not hearing anything back, more than a couple. But I drove over there, and I guess I kept making her laugh a little bit. I never thought of myself as a funny person. But, that day, I also got another call after my audition with her that I had someone had seen my headshot resume, and it was a actual talent agent named Defining Artists, and Kim Dorr had seen it, and after the audition I left, which was incredible that I just had the audition. I think it went fairly well. I went into defining artists, and I read a scene from The West Wing, and that was my first audition for a casting agent. I went back and just went home and got a call that I was going to have a call back at Warner Brothers. That was my mind was starting to explode at that point. It just never had happened. And I went in there, and I guess I did all right in there, because the next day I got the job to be on the Gilmore Girls, and I also got a call that I had representation from that agent. So all of this in the span of 24 hours, I was my world has just changed.
Amazing. The next few years, I guess, you went through something that I've heard you speak about in terms of Freddie's experience of kind of figuring out having to figure out your own identity, because you now were getting work and sometimes some very high profile things, but as sometimes happens in this business, there was a little bit of lack of imagination on the parts of some, and it put you in an interesting position. And I'll just give a few examples. An Egyptian king, an Egyptian vampire, an Iraqi insurgent, an American terrorist. These were things that, they were work, but I get the sense that it wasn't the kind of work you were wanting to be doing, and that maybe there might have been a little bit of trepidation that you might not ever get out of that.
Yeah. And one of those roles I got on, two of them are on this lot, actually. I'm thinking about it now. I know there's always something that I always feel kind of off about when I'm passing these audition halls, and you're going out for something that somehow deep inside there's something not sitting quite right about it. And it came to a point where I just knew that I didn't feel like I was doing a service to myself or my heritage by just portraying, especially the terrorist role. I said, that's going to be enough of that. So at one point I said, I'm going to stop doing that altogether. Told my agent. That's in the past. It got me to a certain place, at least it got some eyes on me, but it did its service, and that was it.
And so the real catapulting thing for you in the most positive way would have been the Pacific, right?
Yeah.
So this is Spielberg and Hank's limited series, following Band of Brothers, and you get a major part with these heavyweights, and it kind of really has gone from there, right? I mean, that was what led to working again with Tom Hanks and Paul Thomas Anderson and so many things from that, right? I don't know if I've ever worked that so hard on an audition, because I really wanted this role. I love history. I'd seen Band of Brothers, and I thought, wow, this is an opportunity of a lifetime if I get to work with Hanks and Spielberg. And so I went in to read a few times over and over, actually. But I knew it was going well because they did keep bringing me back. Meg Lieberman did. So thank you to all these casting directors, by the way. Gotta give a shout out. I went in a few times, like I said, and finally, over the course of a month, I remember feeling like I think I really have a shot at this. And myself and Joe Mazzello were brought in to read in front of Tom Hanks at his office, and it was a very dark room, and sitting next to him seemed a plethora of high-profile producers and craftspeople. Everybody was going to make deep final decisions here. So I was pretty nervous walking into that room, and of course Tom Hanks stands up right away and he goes, "Oh, Rami Malek, I'm a big fan of yours." I think it's a night at the museum. I was at a loss for words at that point. I looked at him and said, "Likewise." Joe Mazzello, who is, you remember from the first Jurassic Park, is a little boy in that. He's reading with me. You also recognize him as John Deacon in this one. We're reading together the
this scene, and it's going pretty good. I'm feeling pretty strong about it. And usually when you have a casting assistant, they're usually younger for the most part. And what was peculiar about this was the person operating the camcorder, who I thought was a casting assistant, was much older and had a gray beard and faintly resembled Steven Spielberg. He was doing some camera work that I thought was very elegant. A few minutes later, I realized why, and I just had to stop myself and say, "Okay, keep going. That's Steven Spielberg that's filming you right now. He very well may be doing that in a month if this works out." So,
Awesome.
yeah, that was an incredible opportunity. And a few days later, they called and said, "You got the job."
Amazing.
I couldn't believe it.
And really, just to remind people, I guess I would like to know how, from where we were talking about 5 minutes ago, where your career was, to in a very short span doing that project with those guys, The Master with Paul Thomas Anderson, 2 with Spike Lee, Old Boy and The Sweet Blood of Jesus, on and on. Where do you think your confidence to hold your own in that kind of company comes from?
Good question. I think that I was playing a World War II Marine from Louisiana with this Cajun accent, and previous to that, I played just Middle Eastern roles, and I thought, wow, I'm playing a guy from Louisiana and pulling it off, to the point where Tom, who writes his letters on typewriter, sent me a letter when I was shooting in Australia, and I had put everything I could muster into this role to make it whatever, everything it should be, and to live up to those guys who were actually there in World War II. God bless them all. And he wrote me this beautiful letter that he said something about, creating this character that has sprung to life in a way that he never thought it would, and just didn't see it that way. And that gave me confidence, so much so that I went out and bought a typewriter just to start writing it. And then, people saw that, which was great. I mean, thank God. And Paul Thomas Anderson saw it, and he brought me in one day. I did an audition tape for him for The Master, reading Joaquin's part, and he liked it, and he liked the Pacific enough to have me come in and read. And it's another moment. I walk in and there's Joaquin, and I got to read with Joaquin. And I thought, okay, or another one of those Spielberg moments where you just got to do your job. And I thought, I could do this. There's no reason why I can't. And I sat in the room with him, and he looked at me, and he just said, he looked at me, and not that I looked foreign to him, it was just character-wise for the role. I think he was hesitant about if I could fit into the dynamics of that family.
This is Paul. Yeah.
So in that moment, he goes, "Man, we're going to work together. I just don't know if this is the right fit." And Joaquin kind of looks at me, and I think he looks at Paul and says, "Damn," because we had good chemistry, I could tell. And in that moment, I said, "Paul, you make one movie like every 4 years. If it's not this one, I really don't want to wait. I'd love to work with you right now. Please give this a little bit more thought." And he changed his mind overnight. I got another call the next day where I thought it was over. So
Persistence,
yeah. Without being, I think, too aggressive.
Right. Interesting. Well, as we almost arrive at the present, there is one that I would not forgive myself for not bringing up if we went without it, and that is Short Term 12, which, if you haven't seen it, go home tonight, and it'll be a great doubleheader with this, because at the time, it was, I think, first-time feature director, Destin Daniel Credin, who had made a short version of this film, and here's who he put in his feature. This is 2013, and the cast of a bunch of nobodies who had no profile for anybody: Brie Larson, Lakeith Stanfield, Caitlin Dever, John Gallagher, and RAMI MALEK, and for less than $1 million, 18 days, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life, and I know anyone else who's seen it, who I know, feels the same. When you're there doing this, after some of these other higher profile ones that we've talked about, what's that like for you? Could you tell early on that it was special?
Yeah, just from reading that script and talking to Destin, I knew that it was special. And yeah, like you said, I didn't know much about Brie Larson. Keith it was the first time I met him, was on set, and it was his first job, I believe. So that was just a script and director moment where I knew that he had a particular vision, his own vision for the film as he wrote it. And I saw the short, and I thought the short was great. And I love working with writer-directors. It gives me such a feeling of trust being in someone's hands who I think can write incredibly well and knows how to direct. And that's what he was offering. And then assembling this cast, there was just something from the beginning I knew was going to be special. And every day going out and shooting with him and that cast, it lived up to every one of my expectations.
Great movie. So around the time probably of that getting out in the world, I would think, is when you first heard about Elliot Alderson, a cybersecurity specialist by day and master hacker by night who grapples with psychological issues and drug addiction while trying to free the world from heartless corporations. We have to, how do you condense, this guy's such a multifaceted guy. It's all yours. This is, of course, Mr. Robot, with a guy who at the time had made no TV. Now he's got Mr. Robot and Homecoming, Sam Esmail. How did that come to you? And at the time, was that even a big deal?
That was, yeah, I mean, it was a moment where he had seen me in the Pacific as well. So how about that? One gig is all it takes to get some eyes on you. And I read that, and it was another phenomenal script, and I just closed it and stared at it. I thought, that's an odd title, but I let that go for a second. And I had to go in and keep reading for him a number of times, actually, even though I think, we knew, I feel like we knew early on it was going to be us, but you have to show all the execs and whatnot, do the tests. But that story from the very beginning was something that just I latched onto, and I knew immediately who this guy was. And another one where I just wanted to sink my teeth in and go away for a long time and come back as this character.
And you're going to be going back again in a month to do another season.
Final season. And
we should note for that performance, Best Actor in a Drama Series Emmy, first non-white winner of that award in like 18 years. And I think neither Jorn or Sam's career will ever be what it was before as a result of that. But all right, so coming to the main attraction of the night, you were born in 1981. Freddie Mercury died in 1991. I can't imagine that you really knew that much about him when he was alive. So what were your, what did you know going into this project about Freddie Mercury? Before you were approached about the project, I mean.
I didn't know all that much. My best friend had named his kid Freddie Mercury, and that was 2 years before I got the job. So the most astonishing thing is to play with 4-year-old Freddie Mercury. He can't figure out how this all works yet, but he's about to. The music, I remember hearing Bohemian Rhapsody for the first time, and it filled me with so many emotions, and I could tell there was something that had far surpassed your traditional song. And it haunted me, it affected me, but at the same time, it made me want to have a laugh and physically move as well. So it was so unexpected, and I knew it was very special, and I wanted more of their music. So I did listen to more, but I'd never seen the amount of footage that I have now.
So now, I guess, how was it even first brought to attention that there would potentially be a movie? And then was there a process, or did they come and say, you are our guy right away?
Well, they had seen Mr. Robot, so that's one thing leading to another. And just to talk about that for a second, Sam Esmail, I gotta give this guy love. He's one of the greatest auteurs I've ever met in my life, and I'm so privileged to be working with this guy. We should all be so lucky.
And talk about a small world, he's also of Egyptian descent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you didn't know that
No,
immediately
yeah.
when he auditioned me the first time.
Right.
Where were we? Oh, so I was on Mr. Robot, and I got a call that the producers wanted to see me, so I flew out to Los Angeles, and that's when I started doing my Freddie Mercury homework and just watching everything I could possibly get my hands on. And I thought, wait, they like Mr. Robot, and they want to see me for Freddie Mercury? I was astounded by it, because, I mean, complete opposite ends to one degree.
And you personally, though, were also immediately interested, or did it take some thought to?
Immediate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I questioned it and if I could do it, but immediately interested. And I thought, well, why? I mean, you get this opportunity once in a lifetime, and we dream of having opportunities and roles like this. We bang on doors for so many years to be in this position, and quite frankly, it would be a disservice not to not take it.
So you get it, and then there's, all this additional work that obviously, had to be done before the cameras rolled. I think the most amazing thing is just people, who have seen you in other things or in real life or on a red carpet or wherever. Clearly, your physicality is extremely different than Freddie's. Forget about the hair and makeup for now. We'll come to that in a second. But just even going about life. So, and you took that very seriously. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a movement coach until I was reading about some of the things that you did to prep. Can you share with people just how much work goes into that aspect of things?
Yeah, well, that was, I mean, it's now the most I've ever worked on any role is for sure this one. I was told, I didn't have to audition for this, but at some point, Graham King and Dennis O'Sullivan had to get a studio behind them, so I did have to make a tape that was shopped around all over Hollywood. So got to thank Fox for actually pulling the trigger on this. And before Fox had actually greenlit it, I said, Graham, there's no way that you're going to get this green light, and in 2 weeks we're going to start shooting one day. Whether you have it or not, I need all the help I can get. So I said, I just flew myself out to London immediately, put myself up, and I said, whatever happens with this, it'll be a wash, or, this is what I've worked so hard to do. I'm going to finance this on my own. Just get me a dialect coach, get me someone to help with the choreography, and he did. I sat down for the first time. I got to audition people to be a choreographer. And as they came in and talked to me, I realized, it's not a choreographer I need. I'd watched Freddie so much. I thought, this guy is so spontaneous. I need to be able to do exactly what he can do at any moment's time, my own way. And I remember hearing that Eddie Redmayne in The Theory of Everything had a movement teacher to help him articulate his body as Stephen Hawking. So I started seeking out movement coaches, and I sat down with this young woman named Polly Bennett, who didn't have the same resume as everyone else, but I could tell immediately that we were going to work well together, and she was so passionate, and she spoke a language that I understood in terms of moving and having a theatrical background where she could help my mind be introduced to movements in a way that I could understand, because I'm not a musical person, believe it or not. I had to take singing lessons for this and piano lessons, and she'll tell you right from the start, I do not do 5, 6, 7, 8. I have to do it a completely different way.
Well, that leads nicely into the next thing, which obviously we should talk about, the singing, because there should be no mistaking anything about, first of all, what was day one of this shoot?
day one, if you don't all know yet, because it's all over the place, was Live Aid. So the first day was that crane shot coming through the audience and wrapping around me as I sit at the piano. And yeah.
Right in the deep end.
It was right in the deep end, yeah. Baptism by fire. But ultimately it was great because it just galvanized us as a band, as a crew. Everybody felt like they had to do the toughest thing first. So from a production standpoint, it was great because it brought us all together. Every person on that set, cast and crew.
And so for that and all the other times that we see you singing, you're singing, and there are people there, obviously, maybe they added a few more digitally or whatever, but, and then it's a blur, it's a blend of you and Freddie, right?
Of myself, yeah. In those moments, yeah. And then we had help from a guy named Mark Martel who came in and did some vocals as well. But this Paul Massey, who's done the sound on this, he's mixed it phenomenally well. I can't tell where I started. It's marvelous. Yeah, it's a shock to imagine. Watch the end of Live Aid every time I can manage to get here and catch at least 5-10 minutes of it, because it's to me seamless the way he's done it.
One other kind of absolutely appropriate shout out I think we should give is to the makeup and hairstyling people that you worked with, who have been shortlisted for an Oscar as well, or with this all. What was we can obviously see that it's you under there, but there are things with your teeth and all kinds of other things that were done. Can you give us a little overview of what your day was like?
That's another thing. I said, Graham, get me the teeth immediately. I work with one of the most phenomenal makeup artists in the business. Her name's Jan Sewell, and she's just a lifesaver for me. I never thought I would be able to look that much like Freddie, and at times, to me, there are moments where I go, wow, she did a phenomenal job. And she said, we have to straighten out your nose and give you more of an aquiline nose, because his nose is razor sharp. So she put a bridge on my nose every day, and you couldn't tell. Most people couldn't tell. They knew there was something different. And for me, it helped because I could look in the mirror and see someone else. And so that was about 2 hours in the morning of hair and makeup. It was a wig throughout, believe it or not. Everything is wigged. I hate to demystify.
Because you were coming off of Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot. So I was trying for the last 2 weeks. I said, don't cut my hair, to my makeup and hairstylist on Mr. Robot. But it just wasn't long enough. But she did, I think maybe 6 wigs she used throughout, and she's a perfectionist, I'm a perfectionist, so between the two of us, every day, it was an excellent combination, and I can only hope to work with her in the future. And she created the looks for everyone in the cast as well. She, of course, had help with several great makeup artists every day, but she's one of a kind.
Well, the last thing I want to just ask you is, you're on set, and I think almost every day, Brian May and Roger Taylor were there, and I wonder what it was like having them there for that, and then also just over a week ago when you won a Golden Globe for this performance, and they were there. You just still have been. They could have, the fact that they are your biggest fans of this performance has got to be the ultimate compliment, right?
I cannot believe it. I cannot believe that I went to the Golden Globes and sat with Brian May.
Right.
Celebrating their best friend.
Right.
I mean, that was the greatest accolade I could have asked for prior to any of this, was just having their appreciation. And we've just become friends out of all of this. So I think we'll be lifelong friends. And I get an more intimate way. I thought this would be the most intimate way to get to know Freddie, and now I have them, which is just the most marvelous thing that's happened in my life. And then, yeah, the Golden Globe on top of that is beautiful and more than I should ever aspire to have in my life. But I'm so proud of all of it.
You should be. It's an amazing piece of work, and it just leaves, I think, everybody that sees it more excited than ever to see what you do next. So thank you for making time for us tonight.